Hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. Today we have the grand finals from Boilerfrag 4.0. So let's go ahead and introduce the players that made it here to the end of this glorious tournament. Up here in the top right hand corner we have a little bit of lag, but also we have the Protoss player spawning as blue in the top right hand corner of Metropolis. We have the one, the only, Moki. And his opponent spawning here in the bottom right hand corner, or about the middle of the map, we have the green Zerg player who's also gloriously made it all the way to the finals of this tournament. He is the one, the other only, Murazor. So once again, Protoss vs Zerg, the favorite matchup of Boilerfrag 4.0, as I'm sure most of you have noticed if you have been keeping up with some of my more recent casts. We do see a Forge Fast expand coming down from Moki. Pretty normal. We have seen this so many times, and this is actually going to be a bit of a rematch, as both of these players didn't end up playing each other in, I think, the winners finals. And in that, Moki ended up losing. Let's see if he can change the tide in this best of 3 series. I do think that it went to game... Actually, I don't know. It was a 2-0 victory for Murazor, I believe. So Moki really going to have to change his game plan a little bit if he wants a good chance of beating Murazor in this situation. We see this pro being very annoying, getting a good scout off, most importantly seeing when these gas geysers are going to be taken. He does also see when that spawning pool is taken, so he's going to feel a little bit safer knowing that that gas geyser was not taken too early, and he can probably just go ahead and throw down his Nexus or his Forge. And we have in recent games seen Moki opt to go for that Nexus first rather than just the Forge first. It's a little bit of a riskier and greedier play, but it has paid off for the most part in a lot of his games, and has not really suffered too many losses from the big aggression early on. And we do see this pro being also very annoying over here. He's going to try and delay this hatchery that this drone wants to become. His drone grew up its entire life trying to become... Oh wow, that drone didn't even have to move to attack that probe. But this drone grew up its entire life dreaming to become a hatchery, and by its entire life I mean probably 3 minutes. It's been around for about 3 minutes. But it has dreamed oh so hard about it, and this drone is actually now just out for blood. His dreams were delayed, he couldn't go to college when he wanted to, so he's just going to go ahead and take this expansion over here and take a part-time job and let someone else take that full-time position over here at the natural. Meanwhile, we do see the Nexus is about halfway completed, the Forge finally finishing up, and that is going to allow a cannon to be thrown down in just a second. I don't believe this shouldn't be a full wall off, but it will prevent this drone from at least doing a little bit more scouting getting a little bit more scouting information. And actually a little bit interesting, I'm actually surprised that Murazor did not opt to just kind of send that drone in and get a little bit more scan information off on the gas geyser, see if there was going to be anything else that he could see coming out. But instead we do see that this Overlord is going to get a pretty good scout off on everything that's going to be going on. The Cybernetics Core will not be finishing up anytime in the near future, so this Overlord won't have to worry about getting shot down unless he decides to suicidally run into that cannon. Now, again, we do see 3 bases already down for Murazor, so that's going to really be helpful for him in boosting up that economy. Something very important for every Zerg player to do, especially when going against an economic Protoss player that's gone for that Forge Fast expand. Now, one thing to note is about this map, Metropolis, is that there is a very easily taken third over here, but you do have to be a bit careful about counterattack paths. If the Zerg player does decide to come in, they can come in from this route, or they can knock down these destructible rocks over here and come in and do all kinds of annoying harassment. But of course, the same thing will be true for the Protoss player. They can put a proxy pylon over here and warp in some zealots on the low ground, trying to do a little bit of harassment to the Zerg player if these destructible rocks are left up. So I do believe that on this map it is in the interest of the Zerg player to knock down the destructible rocks, while it is in the interest of the Protoss player to try and leave them be. But anyways, that's enough out of that. We do see that with all of this gas mining, Moki is going to have no trouble getting out a couple of sentries, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see a +1 weapons upgrade also coming out sometime in the near future. But in the meanwhile, both these players are just going to be powering that economy, and do not want to try and put on any too too big of an early aggression, as that can be a little bit riskier. If you don't do a lot of damage with the early aggression, then you could be in a very rough situation. I see here the worker count is pretty gosh darn even, and both these players also just grabbing those gas guys. As we see here, oh, nice play from Moki. We do see that Zealot, that first Zealot that was ever made, moving across the map. He is just going to try and do a little bit of harassment, try and kill as many drones as possible. Does he even get a single one, though? Oh my god, some great control by Murazor, keeping all except for one drone alive. A very efficient trade for Murazor, as one drone only costs 50 minerals, and one Zealot actually costs 100. It ends up working out pretty well for Murazor, as he could have lost a lot more in that engagement, considering he held that off with just pure drones and one queen. Now let's see if we do see any tech coming down for Moki. It looks like he does have that robotics facility on the way, as well as a couple additional gateways. He does seem to love that robotics facility tech in this matchup, and oftentimes we do see him going for some kind of gateway aggression with just a couple of immortals. We've seen him go for some warp prism play, and we've also seen him just kind of get that to transition into a Colossus push. So we could be seeing multiple tech paths and plans out of Moki. He does have all of his gas geysers, so he will be able to do whatever he so pleases with that in the near future. We do see a Roach Warren and Lair coming out for Murazor. This is pretty nicely timed. He wants to get that Roach Warren just in case Moki. Oh, hold that thought. Well, Moki is actually going to be going for a slightly hidden third. This is a very interesting play. I do actually like the positioning of this, just because, as I was saying before, this expansion over here at the third can be a bit vulnerable to counterattacks. Obviously, this expansion is so far away, and it would also be very vulnerable to counterattacks, as it's just out in the open. But this expansion up here, one, it is going to be a little bit less likely to be scouted, but most importantly, it will actually allow him to do some kind of defense over here at the actual ramp with either force fields, and kind of delay any kind of counterattacks that Murazor tries to do. So this could be an interesting play for Moki, and we're going to see how that ends up shaping out. Obviously, Murazor has absolutely no idea about that, and it's not going to be very likely that Murazor will try and scout that out. But we do see the lair finished up, and let's see if Murazor does decide to throw down any tech in the near future. We have seen in a couple of his previous games that he has seemed to like to go for that very, very heavy roach play, and then eventually teching into something else. We're going to see if he decides to do that again in this game. But we do see that he is quite a bit ahead of supply, and there is that huge swell of roaches. He does have that lair tech, he has that burrow researching Galileo reconstitution, but no tech out for him just quite yet. We do see an immortal being produced. Oh, a couple of Zerglings actually getting snagged by those very nice force fields. Only 3 force fields being used, picking off a fairly heavy chunk of Zerglings, but that does give Murazor a good scout off on exactly what's going on. And most importantly, we do see that there are some immortals being produced. As I said before, 3 immortals will be out by the time that Murazor's aggression does begin, potentially 4, and we also see that robotics bay finishing up in just a couple of seconds. So Moki should be very well prepared for this. He has quite a few force fields still left. He has that very large immortal count to deal with that huge swell of roaches. And soon he should have that third up. I mean, it looks like he's actually just going to be going for that gas, as that is a very, very important resource for every Protoss player. Every Protoss player knows that toward the middle and late game, they are most limited by their gas. So Moki is going to go ahead and get a head start on that, making sure he's mining from that immediately, and also maybe does not want to take a chance in transferring any workers, as he doesn't want to reveal that expansion before he really needs to. And we do see that Murazor should be a little bit cautious right now, as he has seen that Moki has not taken this third over here. He does not know still that Moki has taken this third over here. And he's even going to go ahead and send an overseer and try and see exactly what Moki is up to. And he might be a little bit surprised to see that Moki does not have, say, as large of an army as he was expecting, because he still does not know about that third expansion. So I think that these roaches are just positioned defensively, thinking that, hey, my opponent still hasn't expanded yet. I'm just going to go ahead and try and throw out an expansion and try and hold off the big aggression that my opponent's about to try and do. But little does he know that Moki is actually not intending to do that aggression, at least not just yet. Now let's see, go over here, back to the production tab. We do see that that Spire is on the way, so Murazor looking to do that kind of mutalist transition, maybe even just get a couple of Corruptors out to deal with that Colossus, as he did scout out that there was that Robotic Spade down. He should have also seen the Colossus. So he just wants to get prepared for that, as it can be very difficult to deal with a large Colossus count unless you have some Corruptors or something of the sort, maybe some Infestors out. But it looks like Murazor going to be opting to go for those Mutalists and Infestors. Now again, we did see that fourth being taken for Murazor, so he won't be really too behind economically. They're both keeping up with each other, I would say. Although I would say that right now, Murazor is going to have an issue that's going to be coming up in just a second. He has pretty much been putting all of his supply into these roaches, and now there will be that Spire fishing up, so he will have something besides just roaches. But roaches are often said to be not very supply efficient. Ooh, actually a good win there. Murazor picking off that Observer. That's going to really help him to do some nice burrow play with these roaches. But we do see the roaches moving across the map, as he does know that these roaches are not very supply efficient, so they will have a hard time if he ends up waiting too long and allows Moki to get maxed out on a better composition while Murazor is just stuck on pure roaches. Now, don't get me wrong, roaches are a great unit, and they can do a lot of damage considering how little they cost, but they, again, are not very supply efficient. You never want to be in a position where you and your opponent are maxed out and you only have roaches against a bunch of Colossus, Immortals, all kinds of really scary army stuff. So it looks like, unfortunately, Murazor is really not deciding to move out just yet. He's going to wait for those 9 Corruptors to finish up, and that will very much help against this very large Colossus count. But Moki is continuing to warp in, and he looks like Moki is actually going to be the one to push in. He does not, oh, he does now have that Observer. It's lagging a little bit behind. He would be wise to just kind of wait and start to pick off some of this creep, as that creep will definitely help those roaches nuzzle in against his army before you can throw down the force fields. Now we do see the Corruptors trying to get in, see if they can do a little bit of damage to those Colossus, but they are not able to get a good angle. Now the roaches are trying to come in, but there are some great force fields going down. They do pick up quite a few of those roaches and separated the rest of them out. The rest of the roaches are trying to burrow underneath, but the Observer is there, so they are hitting, the Colossus are hitting all of the roaches that are trying to burrow underneath, and all of the roaches are so clumped over. The Corruptors are doing a massive amount of damage to the Colossus though, and the Stalkers are trying to target down these Corruptors, but they are just not doing enough damage. It looks like the huge Roach Swell is just doing so well with those +2 missile attack upgrades against just the +1/+1 of Moki. And now it looks like the army is slowly getting cleaned up, but not before Moki managed to clean up all of the roaches. All the Colossus are dead though, so Moki has to be very careful about this huge swell of roaches coming in, and I don't know if Moki is going to have a large enough army to really deal with this. This Immortal worth its weight in gold, up to 14 kills. This Colossus already going to be starting to rack up a couple of kills of its own, but these roaches are once again going to be doing a great job in cleaning up all of the rest of Moki's army. This Colossus getting focus fire down. That Immortal finally sees the end of its life, as it is not as immortal as it thought. These Blinkstalkers should get away, and with these reinforcements, it should be okay, and won't have to worry too much about these chasing Zerglings. But still, I think that in the end, we can see here both of these players sitting at about equal worker counts. And you have to realize that with both of those armies being completely vanquished, that will allow Moki to go ahead and take this 4th. Meanwhile, Murazor will be able to soon start mining over here at this 4th expansion. But, you know, I think that Murazor is not exactly in the best position that he really wants to be in. His entire army was killed, and yes, he did kill off most of Moki's army. He managed to kill off quite a few Colossus as well, but unfortunately for him, he was only now getting the chance to saturate that 4th expansion, so his 4th will only be just a little bit ahead of Moki, despite the fact that he took it quite a while ago. And honestly, a Zerg player generally wants to be at least a bit further ahead in economy over a Protoss player, as a Protoss player would generally get slightly more cost-efficient units when they get to the late game scenario where it's 200 versus 200 armies, unless that Zerg player does end up getting that Broodlord army, which looks like Murazor is going to be going for. He does have that infestation pit on the way, so we're going to see when those Broodlords will end up deciding to pop their heads out. Meanwhile, it looks like Moki going for that Dark Shrine. It's about halfway complete, so he will be able to do some very nice aggression. A very interesting decision, actually, is that Moki hasn't actually decided to take this 3rd over here. even as his 4th base, he's deciding to take the other base on the other side. I'm not sure how much I agree with this. I feel like his army is going to be much more susceptible to these counterattack. As you can see here, Mokomi wants to position his army around here, but now the roaches are allowed to move in around the top side, and these roaches will be able to get pretty gosh darn far in. They're even going to be able to pick off a couple of these transferring probes. Oh, so sad for those probes. All they wanted to do with their life was mine some minerals. The army from Mokomi is moving its way across the map, and these armies are so large that my computer is actually lagging just a little bit. Now all these roaches are going to be trapped, but they not before they snipe off the 4th expansion of Mokomi. Now these roaches are going to try and pick off as many zealots as they can. It's kind of hard life for the roaches, as their life was not in vain, though. They did manage to pick off those that 4th base for Mokomi, but still, losing that entire army definitely hurts for Murazor. But at the same time, Murazor is going to go ahead and try and take a 5th expansion, already teching the hive, as that infestation pit is already finished up. And once that hive finishes, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the Greater Spire start, as he wants to get that tech up as soon as possible, because Mokomi is already out for blood. He knows that he has to make up for the fact that his 4th expansion was lost, and he doesn't actually know exactly how many bases Murazor is on. He probably doesn't actually know that this 5th expansion was already taken, but he's going to go ahead and move across the map with these Colossus and these Stalkers. We see a couple more Colossus being already made. The Dark Shrine is already finished up. Do we see any Dark Templar on the map? Yes, we do. We see 6 Dark Templar already on the map. Are they doing any damage? Oh my god, this Dark Templar doing a really good job, already cleaning up 4 kills. Let's see, is there any more? It looks like, no, looks like the rest of them are with the army, or potentially just harassing this expansion over here. This Dark Templar also racking up a couple of kills. And anyways, it looks like Mokomi, seeing that he is just going to back off, as he did see a lot of those spine crawlers, maybe wants to be a little bit cautious, pick off some creep, try and find a vulnerable point first. But it looks like at the same time, Murazor is going to have that time, because Mokomi has been slow about pushing to build those spine crawlers. Those spine crawlers are going to pop just in time, but unfortunately the army for Murazor is going to be a bit out of position, as this Dark Templar over here did manage to get quite a few kills. We can see here that the drone count, while a lot of them were transferred over to the 4th and 5th expansion, they did manage to kill off a decent number of drones. We do see here 22 workers killed for Mokomi on Murazor's workers. And oh my god, this Dark Tower is actually going to kill the hatchery. This will be the 5th base. That is a huge loss from Murazor. He really wants that base. He's already managed to lose mining all the way from his 4th. He also wanted that 5th to get that gas for those Broodlords, as the Greater Spire has already been started. But Murazor is going to be looking to be in not as great of a position as he necessarily wants to be in. Once again, he's maxed out on mostly roaches, a couple of corruptors. He does have a couple of infestors as well. And he does have room for about, say, 30 supply, but really, he does want to get those Broodlords out, and he's going to have a really hard time. Oh my god, these Dark Templar are being so cost-effective. This Dark Templar already staying up at 11 kills now, almost gets the 12th kill, killing off Infestors, which is a great win, a really great use of harassment for Mokomi, and Mokomi's going to know how good of a position he's in right now. He knows that his 4th is already sitting and up. He knows that Murazor's 5th was already sniped off, and Mokomi's actually going to go ahead and take his 5th, while Murazor is forced to try and retake his own 5th. Now, at the same time, Mokomi is maxed out, so he's going to have to be cautious about how long he waits. He is getting that Templar Archives and that Fleet Beacon, so that will mean he's looking to do that Mothership transition, go for that Archon Toilet, which is very effective and very important in this matchup for a Protoss player to do. And look at this Colossus count, 3-1 Colossus, and we have about 9 of them, so that's going to be a very, very scary army for Murazor to deal with. His roaches will basically get one-shotted, even with that +1 Carapace upgrade and the +2 missile attack. I'm not sure that Murazor can take this. He needs to get those Broodlords out as soon as humanly possible. The Greater Spire is finished up. Where are the Corruptors? The Corruptors are over here, but he's not morphing in any Broodlords. He has to worry about this huge army from Mokomi, and oh my god, he does manage to just pick off a couple of those spine crawlers, doing a little bit of poking, being very cautious. He does not want to lose his army. He's not sure exactly when those Broodlords are going to pop, so he does have to be very careful. So he's going to go ahead and just do his what damage he can, go for any weak points that he sees, and then back off while he tries to get this Mothership out, as well as Psystorm. He's going to be able to use that gas to warp in any additional High Templar that will be used for both Archons and and for the Psystorm, which will be quite effective. especially against a couple of these investors who can do some feedbacking. Oh, it looks like there is the killing off of his own units. Murazor forced to kill off some of those roaches so that he can allow for those broodlords to be made. Only now, two only being able to be produced as of right now, but he will end up killing off a couple more of those roaches and will eventually be able to produce enough broodlords to try and deal with his army. But that mothership is about halfway out. We see a couple more Dark Templar being morphed in, as well as some High Templar. So Moki also preparing, would like to see a couple of Archons being morphed in, as that mothership is going to be very important once Murazor does end up getting enough of those broodlords. He is already killing off more and more of his roach. He's already morphing in about 6 broodlords, so this army is going to be looking very, very scary for Murazor. But we have to realize that Moki is looking to be in a great economic position. That Dark Templar harass really cut down on the drone count of Murazor, also killing off that 5th expansion while being able to take a 5th of his own and actually looking to take a 6th expansion. Oh my god. So Moki really looking to be in a great economic position. If he can kill off the army of Murazor, he's going to be looking to be in a fantastic place to take this game. And it looks like Murazor has had enough. He's going to go ahead and move across the map. The roaches in a little bit of a limbo line, moving their way across the map. They need to wait for those broodlords to catch up with the rest of his army. And only now the broodlords are all across the map, and the longer that those broodlords are waiting, the longer the amount of time that Moki has to let this mothership gather up that energy to do that very important vortex. It'll also allow Moki to decide to morph in any Archons if he so chooses, as that Archon toilet does do a massive amount of damage to those broodlords. Basically, you vortex all of those broodlords, and then you throw all your Archons in there, and then when the all of the Archons and the broodlords pop out, all of the broodlords end up being clumped up because they are air units, and the Archons basically get to do splash damage on all of them and nearly one-shot them. So Murazor is going to have to be very careful about that if Moki does decide to do that, but for now, that vortex will be very useful just because Moki has such a huge Colossus count. He's basically going to suck in all of these roaches immediately into the vortex, and once they pop out, those Colossus are going to do a massive amount of damage. +3 Colossus, +2 armor. So Moki's going to be looking to be in a very good position. Let's see, are there any upgrades? Just +1 air weapons on those broodlords, and that will help out just a little bit. And it looks like he's going to start assaulting the front. He's going to actually cancel +3 ground armor for Moki, so that's going to really suck for him. But for now, we do see that that 6th expansion is going to start to get up, and Moki is being very, very patient about this. He's waiting for the energy build up, and now he has that vortex. He's going to try and move in slowly but surely with those Colossus. He wants to make sure that he gets a good engagement angle, as he wants to make sure he doesn't just immediately lose here, as they're both maxed out, and it looks like there is a blink up. He's going to try and pick off a couple of these broodlords, but the stalkers are going to get surrounded by those roaches. They're going to take a massive amount of damage. The storms are going down, and the broodlords are getting picked up. There's only 2 broodlords left, and it looks like those Colossus are going to be able to kill off all of the roaches. All the Colossus sitting in the back with absolutely no problems. The vortex being thrown down. I'm not sure how many units, not that many units getting thrown or actually in there, but we do see a huge swell of roaches coming out for Murazor. He is completely bankrupt, though. After that, he only has gas to be spent as of right now, and it looks like Moki's going to have no trouble remaxing, and that Murazor knows it. He knows that his army is pretty much gone, and his economy is pretty much finished, so he's going to go ahead and GG at this point. So that was a good game, and that's going to actually put this best-of-3 series in the grand finals in Moki's favor. So let's go ahead and jump into game 2 and see if Moki can bring the series back, or will Murazor take, can Murazor bring the series back, or will Moki take this best-of-3 series in a 2-0 fashion? Let's wait and see. Tune in next time, guys.